Welcome to the Primitive Lifeways channel on YouTube. I'm so glad you can join me here today. In this video, we'll be discussing how to increase the speed and performance of your bow. So stick with me, I'll be right back with you. Okay everyone, so I want to welcome you back. Now there's many key factors in making a higher performing or faster bow. The first one is with the sinew back bow. Shorten the bow. You don't need a long bow. Actually, it kind of defeats the purpose making a longer sinew back bow. But if you shorten the bow, you're achieving the same pounds, but you're drawing the bow back farther, thus creating more energy. And in a shorter bow, the limbs are snapping back into place much faster because, again, there's less surface area compared to a long bow. So typically speaking, the shorter the bow with the sinew backing, you're getting more energy and more speed into the arrow cast as long as you're increasing that draw length. This bow, of course, is a self bow, so we don't have any sinew lamination on the back, so it does have its limitations with the self bow. My draw length is about 40 to 45%. Again, with the sinew back bow, I'm going about 60 to 65%. So I'm drawing it back much further, and that's increasing the energy into the arrow's cast. Now, one other thing about sinew backing, and many of you have heard me discuss this in previous videos with the Hoopa bow build Mark Swanson and I did. Sinew stretches out 8 to 10 times more than wood. So that's the reason why you can achieve a longer draw compared to a self bow or even a rawhide back bow. Now, the second thing that we'll discuss is the tips, and this is really a huge contributing factor in increasing the speed of any bow, whether it's sinew back, rawhide back, or just a self bow. The narrower the tips, the faster the bow will perform. So all of these bows have narrow tips. A ½ inch below the nock is where I like to measure out my tips. So a ½ inch below the nock, and then they slowly taper down into the body of the bow or the working area, transitioning into the handle. So the narrower the tips, the faster the bow. And the best way to describe this is when you put your hand outside of the window of a vehicle and you lay it flat, like I have my hand here, there's resistance. You can feel your hand start to pull back at high rates of speed. But as soon as you turn it sideways, you're cutting through the air. The same thing can be said for a bow tip. This is essentially working as a lever. So the narrower the tip, the less resistance there is within the arrow cast, and you will definitely notice a difference on any type of bow with narrower tips. Now, the next contributing factor to increasing the performance of a bow is the design. And as my good friend and mentor Mark Swanson tells me all the time, design really does dictate purpose. In this particular design, I'm looking for the maximum amount of speed as possible. So we have this short profile. I have a sinew backing, so I'm drawing this bow back to 60 to 65%. But I also have reflexed limbs and recurved tips. So essentially, with these reflex limbs and narrow recurved tips, I'm now putting greater stress on this wood, and you can feel it. This is only a 40-pound bow, but compared to some of the other 40-pound bows, you can feel it's much harder to pull back, and it's almost like when you pull it back, the string wants to just go, and the arrow wants to release itself. So those contributing factors, short design, narrow tips, reflex profile, 60 to 65% draw, makes this bow much faster than its competitor that's also a 40-pound weight or 40-pound draw. So my last discussion point of increasing the performance and the speed of your bow really lies within the arrow and what materials you're deciding to use, how narrow and how thick the arrows are. So typically speaking, the lighter the arrow, the faster it will hit its object or the target you're shooting at. The heavier the arrow, the slower it'll reach the target or the object. Now you have to be careful, because if the arrow is too light, especially with a 55 to 70 pound bow, it's like dry firing the weapon and the bow could break. So there's a nice happy medium in between too heavy and too light, and that's exactly where both of these arrows are at. This is willow, so it's nice and light, but you can see it has a bit more mass to compensate for the lighter material. This is rosewood. It's much thinner. It's a denser piece of wood, but again, we're talking about the same weight, and both of these arrows will reach the target at an exceptionally fast rate of speed. Hey everyone, so that just about wraps up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you learned something, help us out. Click the notification bell, hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to this channel on YouTube, and share this video throughout social media. It really helps us to grow, expand, and most important, to hit a wide, diverse audience. Once again, I'm Jeff with PrimitiveLifeways.com. We'll catch you on the next video. Take care.